Yo, 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 flip yo, it's one of Friday. Still pandemic edition. Alright, as per usual, go ahead and subscribe, share if these videos are helping you or the other people in your life. That is the whole purpose of them. Also, like in the past couple of videos, I will put some additional resources below. I think today I have some documentaries that I'm thinking about posting. That's just that you can check out to unlearn and learn as we navigate through the racial justice movement going on right now. So today's topic is mistakes are guaranteed during the racial justice movement. They're guaranteed. So if you're sitting there going, I don't know what to say, I'm afraid to make a mistake, so I just won't. Don't do that, please. And I'll give you some examples and share some things just to help you. But right now, we need people to step up. And it's okay to make mistakes. So before we get into the depth of that, a couple of things. If you've been watching these videos, or you know me, or you've heard my presentation, you know I'm going to keep it like super real. That's why I don't do editing. It's just going to keep it real and honest. And so every video I make, whether it was before the pandemic, during the pandemic, this is I think the third video about racial justice. Every video I make are also messages and lessons that I need to learn or to reinforce or remember for myself too. And that's a very common thing with a lot of speakers is we share messages that we need to hear. So this is no different. I am not up here like, I have all the answers. I do not. I have plenty of life experience. I've been working with teens, and for 24 years I work with teens and educators across US and Canada. I do a lot of learning. I listen to audiobooks a lot. I follow people who do the research, so I learn from them, and I can share that also. But I do not have all the answers. I have my perspective from my experience, and that's what I'm happy to share here to help. And even I think it was in the last video, the last Monday with Molly, I had mentioned during this time we have to do a lot of unlearning. We have to do a lot of work on ourselves, do the work from within. Compared to just pointing fingers at everyone else. And I just rewatched that video before I make this one, and I was kind of laughing to myself, and I was like, yeah, I point fingers too. So I'm never here saying, you guys, don't point fingers. It's not okay. But then I go do it there's different rules for me. So I'm not perfect, obviously. I point fingers too because, it's easy. It's easier than doing the work. But we have to do the work. And in fact, last week I was pointing fingers quite a bit. Before I get into exactly how, so I have a tendency to, when I'm trying to learn something, or when I was doing therapy, initially going to therapy and trying to heal, I do what I call immersion therapy. So I dive deep. I go deep, 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 consuming everything I can to learn or have the breakthrough quicker, versus dabbling in things. Now, if something's not important to me, I will dabble, but if it's important to me, I dive in, which is beneficial because I get through things quicker. But it's very heavy. It's very emotional, and I really have to just own that the next week or 2 weeks or however long I'm going to do the work for, it's going to be intense. And that's what I did probably maybe for the past, and again, I'm going back to last Friday, probably the 7 to 10 days prior to that, I dove in with every documentary I could watch on systemic and institutional racism. I've watched plenty before. I'm not sitting here what, there's racial injustice? Yeah, I mentioned another video. My initials are MLK. When I first learned that me and Martin Luther King are the same initials, I was just curious. It was an innocent curiosity, and little by little in the civil rights movement, I was curious. And I've done a lot of work. I've gone to museums. I've read the books, documentaries. I'm not an expert in any way, shape, or form. I am not. I have plenty of my own implicit biases, talked about in the previous video. But even so, doing the work, I wanted to go deeper, deeper, deeper. So that's what I did for the past those 10 days or so. And it was heavy, and it's all I did. I think other than getting in my workout, that's all I did, to consume audiobooks, interviews, podcasts, documentaries. And then last Friday, I had an epic meltdown. Like epic. I have not felt this bad, low, sad, angry in, 8 to 10 years. It was an epic meltdown, sobbing, rageful. I was pointing fingers. Ooh, I was pointing fingers. It was just this perfect storm of exhaustion, the tension, what you're watching on the news, personal beliefs, seeing what friends are saying on social media, the sadness, all of it. It was just and I was not okay. And just as I share with you, you got to reach out and ask for help. You are not alone. Excuse me. Yum. I think it was a tomato seed. You're gonna keep it real here. I don't edit. So fortunately, I was able to call one of 3 people who could handle me in that situation. I was either going to be my counselor, who I was not going to call at 8 o'clock on a Friday night, and then I have two long-term friends. And unfortunately, Becky responded to my text right away, and we spent 2 hours on the phone. And I am so grateful for Becky, because there's 3 people I can think of who I could trust to be that raw and honest and like not okay with, who could also hold that space for me to let me be like that. And third, who could talk to me in a way that would be beneficial. So, and I think especially being able to call Becky, we've been friends for decades. Oh my gosh, decades. Oh yeah, the gray hair is still there. All right, just checking. But we disagree on a lot of political topics, important things that we think are, important and valuable. We disagree on plenty of that, but we're still friends. And I just love having her in my life, and I don't want to not have her in my life. So that conversation was critical to really kind of talk me down, calm me down, get my own perspective. And I'm just sharing that because it's okay to struggle through this. It's okay it's okay to not be okay. Well, in any time, it's okay to not be okay. This is heavy stuff we're going through. 3 months in lockdown, and now with what's going on now, it's a lot. You don't have to always be calm, cool, and composed. That's okay. Please be human. We need more humanity right now, and it looks different every given day. So I wanted to share that to just, a lot of times I am like this. I'm fairly calm, cool, collected. I've done a lot of work. I am not always like this. I can get angry too. And that's how I felt Friday. Felt like old school Molly. And I was like, this is not okay. Plus the sadness. It was so much, and I needed some help with that. So you're allowed to feel, okay? All right. Coming back to the original topic after 8 minutes. You're going to make mistakes throughout this, okay? So I'll give you a quick example of how I've already done this, and then I'll share some examples that you can use moving forward. So last fall, I was out in California doing a keynote and a workshop at a conference on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I mentioned in a previous video, those 3 things are linked. They're different, but they're linked. So if you don't know, go do the work and research it. So do the keynote, lunch, I'm talking to a bunch of different people. One of the ladies was Jackie. Have a great conversation, come back to the workshop. I said, all right, you're going to partner up. You're going to discuss these questions, blah, blah. So stand up, find a spot in the room, stand up, find your partner. It's just different energy when you stand up. Well, Jackie, the lovely lady who I just spoke to, is in a wheelchair. She's not able to stand on her own. So I'm like, stand, which is something I usually do when I'm working in a group with teenagers who I don't know it so far has been in a wheelchair or was not able to stand. So it's just something I'm used to saying. And I look and I'm like, oh my God. Like, they're paying me to give this presentation to help educate, and I make this colossal mistake. It was embarrassing. So I went over to Jackie, I apologized, and she's like, you know what, I'm used to it. I said, I believe you. I said, but that doesn't make it okay. And I got to own it. I'm sorry. That was just ignorant on my part. Not even ignorant. It's just because ignorant is like not knowing. I knew better. It was a mistake. Came back up, we get the group back together. I totally called myself out in front of everybody, and people get it. Nobody's like, you're an idiot, and walked out, because they've all made mistakes in their own way too. One of the other things we talk about inclusion is I often say, I don't know if it's where I'm from, I often say, hey, you guys, and the whole audience could be women or people who identify as women or female. They're not guys. Right? And when you're talking about inclusion, that's not the right wording. It could be, hey, everybody, or you, or y'all. So even as a professional speaker, I made that mistake. It's okay. Learn from it. I definitely will and have. And as we move forward, and you might be thinking, well, I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to be perfect. I don't want to offend anyone. For all the white people out there, our silence has offended has offended black people. That's offensive. So at least, and don't try, you know how I feel about try versus do. Take action, do the thing, say the thing with proper intention. And if somebody calls you out and say, oh, you know what? Say this instead of that. Don't take it personally. Be like, oh, I can't do anything right. Yeah, you can. Someone just helped you and gave you feedback. Do better next time. That's all this is. Simple example. You might be confused, and I was kind of had this question too, is like, so should we say black? Should we say African American? Should we say, where you'll see it say BIPOC, black, indigenous, people of color? You know, it's kind of like, what do I do? Is it wrong? Okay, well, what I've been hearing lately from the people I've been listening to is, again, generally, if you mean to say black with a capital B. There are plenty of black people who don't associate themselves or call themselves African American because maybe they're Jamaican American, or maybe they have had a couple generations here in America and they don't, you know, those African roots were stripped from them and they don't identify with them. So just because someone's black doesn't mean African American. And if you mean indigenous people, say that. If you mean people of color, you know, where it could be black, maybe it is indigenous, maybe it is Latinx. Maybe it is anyone else who has anything that's like not white, which is like a lot of people. If you mean people of color, say people of color. If you specifically mean indigenous, say indigenous. If you specifically mean black, say black. The point is, if somebody calls you out, if I say, oh, hey, so when black people this, or do black people, and if somebody calls me out and says, you know what, it sounds like you really mean people of color. Who do you really mean? I'm like, that's what I did. Yep, that's what I did mean. I said it wrong. I'm just going to be like, yes, I said it wrong. I made a mistake. I'm not going to be afraid to make a mistake. I invite you to not be afraid to make the mistakes. Make the mistakes, and let's unlearn and then learn what we probably should have been taught in school, but we weren't because systemic racism. A lot of whitewash education that needs to be reformed. So 0 people expect you to be perfect through this. But putting our heads in the sand or being afraid to make the mistake or we don't want to offend anyone is not how we are allies. Or I heard a great interview today where they're like, there's a difference. It was the lady who started the Me Too movement. It's Tarana, and I can't think of her last name, and another woman who I was just introduced to today. And they're like, you know, you can be an ally or you can be an accomplice. And an accomplice is like the next level up. Like not only marching, but kind of like giving, like how they're doing right now on Instagram. I think it's called Share the Mic or Share the Mic Now. So you have different women who have a strong platform sharing it with black women or indigenous women or people of color to get their voice out. That's an accomplice. Like, yes, here's my password, go into my Instagram, take the hour, do what you gotta do. So again, that's something I learned today too, an ally and an accomplice. Learn. When we learn, we make mistakes, and that's okay. Please make mistakes. All right. That's what I have for today. I hope this helps you. It's a lot. It's way past due. The time is now. Let's keep moving forward. Flip your 20. Peace.